Hello, gunfighters. Saddle up for another episode of Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics. Today, bags. Bags that you put guns in. The right way, with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I'm going to toss in a rapid-fire bio real quick, down and dirty, and we'll get into the main topic. Blessed to have served in the military, law enforcement, combat veteran, private contractor, competition shooter, lifelong hunter, guide. Blessed by God that He got me through all those things so I could share this first-hand training, knowledge, experience with you to serve you today. Let's dive into the podcast. Now, I'm going to start small and work my way up as far as gun bags go. Now, let's start with sling bags. I've actually used sling bags for quite a while. And I just want to say, you shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. So know that if I mention a brand or a certain pack, it's not because I'm sponsored by them. It's not because they gave me stuff for free. It's not because they're paying me to tell you how great it is. I've turned down sponsors in the past. I hope you appreciate an honest opinion. And likely there are many other packs that are as good that I just won't mention because I don't have as much first-hand experience with them. But you can extrapolate if it's similar quality, similar make, whether it'll work or not for you. One that I've used for a long time is the Versa pack, the Max Edition Versa pack. It's like a sling bag. Just using it recently. That thing, I've had that thing a lot of years. It has been used hard and put away wet. I broke the big buckle on it, replaced it myself. Other than that, it's been going strong for a lot of years, and I've used it for a lot of years. This type of pack, either this one or one like it, like a sling bag, they're good for all kinds of scenarios. They're good for a mini bug-out bag. You know, throwing a bunch of survival gear in there. A water filter, fire starting material, extra pair of socks, all that stuff, plus a full-size fighting handgun with spare ammunition and a tourniquet and things like that. It can be a decent bailout bag. Not that you can't use other types of bailout bag, but it can be a decent bailout bag. You know, it'll fit a full-size fighting handgun. And I've said before, carrying a handgun is a compromise. It's unless you get in some real in-the-weeds scenarios, it's not better for anything than a long gun. It's not better for home defense. Sorry if I hurt your feelings, but it's not. It's not better as far as firepower goes. It's not better as far as, you know, hitting a target at distance goes. It's not better for really anything except the fact that you can have it on you. So a handgun's already a compromise. A small handgun is even more of a compromise. I generally carry a full-size fighting handgun. I'm a big proponent of that, but many people carry these micro 9s. That's a compromise of a compromise. They are not as good as a full-size fighting handgun unless you go to the extreme and compare like a 365 to a high .9 or something. But in general, they're not as good as a full-size fighting handgun. So the sling bag will let you carry a full-size fighting handgun. And a bunch of accessories. You know, maybe you want to throw a spare AR-15 magazine in there if that's part of your bailout kit. Maybe you want to throw in several spare handgun magazines or a box of ammo. You know, along with a couple of tourniquets, a med kit, some quick clot, whatever you want to throw in there. These little bags are good for that. Especially good if you're just going short distances, like you don't normally take your wife's car, but for whatever reason today you're taking your wife's car, you don't want to move all your prepper gear into your wife's car, so you just grab your little sling bag and you're better prepared than you normally would be. They're a good option. They're quick to put on. Another cool thing about them, I don't normally carry them this way. I usually carry them the way they're intended, slung across your back. But if you're in some kind of civil unrest, disaster scenario, going through some kind of thing like that, you can literally sit with that bag on your chest like in the car. And if you jump out, it's right there. And if you have to reach in and grab it, you can keep it unzipped with a dedicated pocket for the fighting handgun, and you can reach in there and grab it, whether you're riding in the car or you've had to jump out of the car. And it's real quick access to a big fighting handgun. As big as you want, really. You put an FNX 45 tactical in there with a light and an optic and all kinds of stuff, and a bunch of spare magazines. So they're good for that. They're a good small bag that increases your ability quite a bit, not to mention all the other day-to-day stuff you can put in there, like quest bars or whatever. Sling bags have a lot of utility. Another real common one like this, not necessarily a sling bag, but a laptop bag. If you want to go super gray man, all the things that I said about that, Maxpedition VersaPack or some kind of sling bag, you can generally do, not as easy, but you can do with a laptop bag. And a lot of yuppies, a lot of city folk, a lot of whomever carry laptop bags. Now, laptops get stolen, so you got to think about that. Maybe you don't want to leave that in your car where somebody looks in and sees a laptop bag. But they're real urban. They're real gray man. You could get on public transportation if it's allowed and just carry all that stuff in a laptop bag. A full-size fighting handgun, a legit fixed blade, good utility knife, extra mags, extra ammo, tourniquets, your tactical protein bars, extra cash, all that stuff. Laptop bag. You can put big stuff in there, and you can move up a little bit. You can even go to the uber small PDWs, like the Roni kits and the other kits they have to convert your Glock to a very small pistol caliber carbine, or PDW. PDW is probably more correct, although there's a lot of crossover. But a PDW, you want to put a small PDW in there, one of the 320 chassis that convert it into a shoulder-fired weapon or a pistol-braced conversion kit that gives you quite a bit more firepower, or at least a little bit more shootability with the same amount of firepower, which firepower doesn't mean anything if you can't deliver it on target. So those are pretty cool, and many of those would fit into a lot of laptop bags. There are some pretty tactical laptop bags, which is fine. But I think one of the main reasons you go to a laptop bag is that it's gray man. So, go to Goodwill or go to wherever, Walmart, and find yourself a good, you could tell, what kind of man I am, I guess. But you want to go Gucci, literally probably Gucci makes a laptop bag. But whatever crowd you're trying to blend in with, get just a plain Jane laptop bag. And you can stow all that kit in there. So laptop bags make a good gun bag. And if you want to go OG, one of the things the original gangsters actually used to do was use musical instrument cases, violin cases, guitar cases, things like that. Wouldn't be my first choice, and that's not the kind of crowd I normally kick around with. But, if you live in an apartment and you're just going to the range and back and you don't want your neighbors to know that you have guns, throwing them in an old beat-up guitar case you got, again, at Goodwill or Play It Again Sports or whatever. I don't even know if Play It Again Sports has guitar cases, but you get the idea. Get an old beat-up guitar case and you want to, drag your gun back and forth in and out of your apartment without somebody knowing that you have a gun because you live in that kind of environment. That's not a bad idea. There's a reason the old school gangsters did that. So if you drive a Model T and you want to throw your, submachine gun in a musical instrument case, rock on. Or if you're modern day and you want to use a musical instrument case and throw in your takedown AR-15. And just a quick note, people don't often think of them like this, but an AR-15 and most semi-auto and pump shotguns are takedown guns. You punch out 2 pins for an AR-15. You take off usually 1 screw for the pump action shotguns and or semi-auto shotguns, and they're takedown guns. So, you can sew them in a lot smaller container. Now, they're not going to be ready to go, but that's what E.D.C guns are for. That's what the gun you have on your hip is for. But anyway, just a brief aside there. Now moving up, backpacks. Obviously, you could go two ways with this. You can go uber tactical backpacks, and you can go super gray man, JanSport. JanSport is not a sponsor, but JanSport backpack, your Scholastic type backpack. If it's a similar size, a similar CC, you hold a similar size gun if you're trying to go gray man. Now, if you want to, flag your Second Amendment flag and say, this is my gun bag, and everybody knows it, and I want everybody to know that I have a gun in here. There's those kind of bags too. And many times that doesn't matter because, you throw it in your car and you throw an old jacket over it. That's urban camo, baby. I do that all the time. Get in your car and you throw an old hoodie over it. But if you're walking around with a backpack and you want to be gray man, that's a different story. So think about that for your backpack selection. When you move up to a backpack, obviously backpacks span an entire broad spectrum of sizes. But if we talk about a normal size backpack, there's a lot of options there, and you can move up to many of the guns we've talked about. You can move up to some of your PCCs. You can move up definitely your PDWs and up into your PCCs, and many takedown guns. Whether they're designed to be a takedown gun, if you made them a takedown gun. Something like a Ruger 1022 takedown. If you think the 22 is the ultimate survival rifle, a 1022 takedown broken down into a backpack, again with a bunch of other survival supplies. Spare ammo was kind of a given. That's one of the great things about the 22. You could literally throw a couple of spare bricks of ammo in there and you've got 1,000 rounds. So that's something to be said for the 22. And you throw in there some emergency rations, a water filter, some 550 cord, water purification, a Sawyer Mini. And I don't want to turn this into a bug out bag episode, but I want to mostly focus on the gun bags. But there you go. You're pretty good to go for that. A lot of these real tiny ARs. Now, I'm not a big fan of going much shorter than like 10.5 inches on ARs. You get really small, and I kind of see it defeating the purpose of carrying an AR in 5.56. But there's a lot of these tiny little micro ARs, if I can use that term, like the SIG 365 of the AR world. They've got all kinds of them, like Maxim Defense makes one. A lot of companies make them. You can make your own. Be careful, if you're using the standard direct impingement system, which is not actually direct impingement, but that's what it's called, you get into short barrels, you can run into some issues, so be wary of that. Probably don't go cheap if you're going one of these. But if you wanted to go that route, you could go 5.56, you could go, 300 blackout, and you could get it in a really small package, whether folding stock or one of those little mini stocks or pistol braces that would fit into one of these bags. And that is quite an increase in firepower, assuming it's reliable, over a lot of your PDW options. So you start talking about that when you start talking about backpacks. Now there's the other genre. For a long time, I forget what I have. I forget my first Eberly stock pack, but I ran that for a long time hunting. And then I moved to an Eberly stock gun runner, which I still have, which is still a great pack. And I also now have a Eberly stock Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation pack, RMEF pack. The last two are in Loden. That's a color. It's like a real dark forest green, which is great because it blends in doing outdoors type stuff, which I take those bags out in the wilderness. They also blend in normally. They don't scream tactical. They're not like black multicam or something. So I like that color. Also, not all Eberly stock packs, but a lot of their hunting packs I like because they have a scabbard in the back. Now, this is not for gray man stuff, but you can take a full-size hunting rifle like a Winchester, pre-64 Model 70 and 30-06 and slide it in the back of that backpack, and it has a built-in scabbard. You can throw in, a Remington 870 back there or whatever you want and just stow it back there, and it sticks out. You can see it, but that's another type of gun bag that aids you in carrying that gun. Now, it's not super quick access like that. That's not really the point. It's for when you're hiking miles and miles and miles, you should probably still have a gun on your hip or your E.D.C gun, and that gun's for hunting. And you're going from a place where maybe you can't even hunt yet, and you have to get to a place where you can legally hunt. And you're covering a lot of ground with a bigger, full-size, not takedown gun. those Everly stock packs or others like them are good. I don't like as much, and I have some experience. I was a professional guide, but the ones that carry the gun on the side, the issue with that is if your pack is well packed to begin with and you hang the gun on the side, it kind of throws off the balance of your pack. And or you pack it so it's balanced with the gun on the pack, and then you take the gun off and now it's not balanced anymore. And balance is a big deal when you're putting a lot of miles on those Subarus, those Lamborghinis, right? Mile after mile on your leather personnel carriers. Balance is a big deal. So I don't like those as much, but they are an option. And Everly stock's not the only one that makes the scabbard straight down the middle and the back, but I like that. The one thing I don't like about it is they're designed to go muzzle down. And I don't like that because when you're out in the backcountry doing stuff, you can fall, and I don't want to fall on the muzzle. But that being said, it's pretty well padded. I've never, in all the times I've fallen, had my gun ruined like that. So that's something. But those kind of bags exist, like a dedicated hunting bag where you can carry a full-size rifle in the back of it. And it's a legit pack. So if you want that to be your bug out bag, which mine is, I have like a big bag. I use it for hunting. I use it for rucking, for exercise. I use it for my bug out bag. I use it for all that stuff. So you might want to consider one that you can carry a full-size firearm in. Even if you don't generally do it, if it's your bug out bag, say, and you're trying to cover a lot of miles, obviously have your E.D.C gun, your carry gun on your hip for quick access, but you can throw a full-size gun back there if that's what you choose to do. Now let's move on, getting even bigger. The duffel bag for the traveler, right? For the guy that travels a lot, whether for work or just travels cross country on vacation or whatever. Duffel bags. Now the classic one of this that I'm really familiar with, as you might imagine, serving in two branches of the armed forces, the sea bag, the big military duffel bag. You could put an arsenal in there if you want. Those are great. They make even bigger than the standard ones. I have one. It's a giant navy blue bag. It's so big I could probably put my wife in it and drag her around. I don't know why I would do that, but it's to make the point, it's big. I could probably fit in it. It's a big bag. I could probably double and use it as a sleeping bag. It's so big. Pretty much the sky's the limit there. Just make sure when you pack your guns, you pack it in such a way it's not going to get damage rattling around. But duffel bag guns, they're very useful, and not for anything nefarious. Like, let's say you're traveling and you're going to be staying in a hotel, and you don't want your neighbors to your right and left to know that you have guns in your room. Well, throw them in the duffel bag. Duffel bags aren't nearly as good to carry generally as a backpack with two straps, but you're talking about going from your car to the hotel. So maybe you got to lug it up a flight of stairs, right? Not a big deal. Maybe you are just literally walking across the sidewalk to go from where you park your car to inside the motel room. Maybe you don't even plan on taking it out of your car. It's just going to stay, let's say, in the trunk if you drive a car. But if the car breaks down, you'd like to just be able to grab it with your valuable stuff, guns included, and just put it in the house. And again, cheap, easy, surplus type stuff. The military sea bags are real good. They're real durable. They're not the only game in town, but, they last. They were built for endurance, let's just say that. And really, unless you get crazy, you can put any gun in there that you want. And the point of these, again, is not to cover a lot of ground on foot, but it's to conceal these kind of firearms. Like a full-size firearm, and you can have it, especially if, not so much the military ones, but if you get the top zip, some of the newer military ones have a top zip as well. You can just put it in the trunk or even in the back seat covered up, and have it unzipped if that's legal where you are, so you can have access to a full-size firearm. So that's something to think about, a duffel bag gun. In fact, you could take an entire soft case like AR-15 in the soft case with 3 or 4 spare magazines and everything all zipped up in your nice soft case to keep it protected, and throw the whole thing in one of those duffel bags. Again, talk about camo. Throw a couple of jackets or something on top of it, and people, even if they see the bag, are going to assume it's full of clothes, probably. Somebody can still break into your car if they're going to break into your car anyway, but it doesn't scream, there's something expensive here, come take it. So duffel bags, that's a real thing. That's a thing that you can use, even day to day, even if, again, you don't plan on it. That's something nice to have if your car breaks down or something. You got to, let's say, get an Uber. I don't know what their firearms policy is, so check that before you do it. But you probably just grab the whole duffel bag, throw it in the back seat when you got to get a ride home, whatever the case might be. And this is not an exhaustive list. I'm not really going to talk about purses because I'm a man. There's probably a female gun podcast that could give you a lot better advice on that. One of the reasons I do this podcast is that I come at it with real world firsthand experience. I don't have a lot of real world firsthand experience carrying a purse with a gun in it. I'm a man. I identify as a man. I wear man pants. I don't carry a purse. So, but you could probably find information on that if you're looking for a female in your life, or if you're a female listening. That's an entirely different kind of gun bag. Anyway, if you like this episode, I've done entire episodes in the past on like laptop bag guns, or, I'm just rebroadcasting an entire series on truck guns. So if that kind of stuff interests you, go type in whatever keywords when you're searching in this podcast for those things. I get more in depth on like exactly what would be good choices for guns for those bags. If you're going the other way and you have a good bag and you're trying to figure out what gun to put in it for, civil unrest, things like that. Today's mostly just about the different kinds of bags and what your options are. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, number one, hopefully you're liked and subscribed to the show. If you've never left some stars or a rating, if you can on whatever app you're listening to, I would appreciate that. Easy way to support the show. If you want to become a patron, mostly because you believe in the show, you appreciate it, you want to support all the buzzwords, right? This is a veteran-owned small business, gluten-free, American-made podcast, all the stuff, right? If you want to support that, consider becoming a patron. Also, if you become a patron, you'll get a lot of cool insider-only content. I just did one on caveman cooking like a caveman. It's not out yet, but it's recorded. It's probably going to be out by the time this comes out. But there's a lot of insider-only content that you're just not going to get unless you become a patron. And it's not just me giving you special content. You can be part of an insider group in there where there's a lot of guys in there that know a lot more about other stuff than I do. They've helped me out quite a bit. Like when I've been broken down, literally, they're like, have you tried this? No, I haven't. I never thought of that, because some guys in there are professional mechanics or professional tow truck drivers, things like that. It's a good group of guys that I'm blessed and humbled to be a part of. Anyway, if you want to be a part of that, if you want to support the show, consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Tactical tip of the day. If you're going to put a gun in a bag or anywhere, especially in a vehicle, for a long period of time, you might consider something a little bit thicker than your normal gun oil. Again, if it's going to be in there a long time, if it's like a gun that you're going to use and take to the range quite frequently, that's okay. Regular gun oil is probably fine unless you live in like Georgia, in the salt marsh. But thicker grease, either, you're probably familiar, if you're familiar with military surplus, with the old Cosmoline. That stuff will stop some rust, but it's also really hard to get off. White lithium grease, that's not a bad option. Also, again, I don't take sponsors, but there's stuff called Frog Lube. Frog Lube is pretty good. It's a lot more viscous. It's even kind of solid. Now, depending on temperature, it's probably going to melt, but it's a lot thicker than normal gun oil. That stuff works pretty good. And if you want to go cheap, axle grease. Right, axle grease will work. Again, that's for a long-term storage gun. Like it's not even your normal truck gun. It's like a gun you keep in the trunk of your wife's car that almost never gets used, but you want it there just in case one day it's needed and you're not at home. Something like that real thick, nasty grease, that works pretty well as a rust inhibitor. That's why they put Cosmoline when they packed those old military surplus guns in for storage. So consider that if it's going to be a long-term storage gun, in a bag or otherwise. Your tactical verse of the day. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. I'm going to read that again. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day.